Cheers, and welcome to episode 3 of Between the Columns. I'm your host, Jael, and I apologise for the delay in getting this video out to you. I had some technical issues and some real-world distractions, but on the positive side, I've also been distracting myself with some very good xenolinguistic projects that I hope to share with you very soon, and I've also been putting a lot of effort into this particular video, so hopefully it's spot on for you. In the intervening time, we have passed 200 subscribers, which I'm immensely grateful for. I made name designs for the 2 subscribers who helped push me over the top. I've decided I'm going to make a rolling competition with prizes names designs. All you have to do to enter is make a constructive comment on my most recent video. I'll be choosing one at random when I upload my next video, and then we'll design a name for you and it'll get shown in the next video. So far in our series on names, we've worked out how characters work and we've translated some easy names. What we need to do now is apply pitch information to those names. I'm going to be using my colour coding again, so if something is one colour in the SRX, it's going to be the same colour in the Xi'an writing, and that will always be a letter that you could find on the alphabet page. Xi'an is what's called a lexically tonal language. That means that the same syllable said at different pitches or with a different change in pitch will have a different meaning. For example, Rai at a neutral pitch means to haul, transport, to carry, while Rai at a low pitch means a year. While there are a few traps like this, overall they're a little bit rare and you'll actually find more overlap of similar syllables with different vowel lengths. To explore pronunciation, I really think you should look at page 14 in the book, watch the official videos, and have a look at the linked soundboard in the description. What we're going to focus on this video is more about how it's written both in Xi'an and in the SRX, because that's important for understanding how to put pitch into your name. There have also been some changes in how tone is written in the SRX since the original videos were made, and we'll cover those in this video. Pitch is denoted by the addition of extra punctuation to the syllables we have already written. What's more complicated is how that punctuation is then reflected in the SRX. I'm going to be discussing the broad rules of pitch spelling in SRX. There are still a lot of exceptions that I'm still finding after several years, partially because the rules were slightly changed. Some exceptions to these rules are deliberate decisions to put in some quirky spelling, like in a real language. Some things which seem like exceptions are really just rare edge cases that don't come up that much. And some exceptions to these rules do appear to just be mistakes that got missed in the long list of words, because they represent a difference in the SRX that wouldn't actually change the pronunciation. It's just in a different place than where you might expect it. It is obviously easy for me to miss some things. Some people might disagree with what I consider to be an exception, or might disagree with what I've chosen to leave out. So do make sure you check the description for any errata and any pinned comments for further discussion. Starting with the simplest, the absence of any additional marking denotes a flat neutral pitch, as in the word for clothing, nya. True high pitch is denoted by the addition of 2 marks to the top right of the syllable and a quote mark after the syllable in the SRX, shown here in red. It's commonly found on one-syllable words such as ka, meaning place, or at the end of multiple syllable words like ha. There's a few examples of it appearing inside a word, and most of them start with ka, like kama and ka'ia, meaning animal and crop farm respectively. Low pitch is expressed by a mark in the bottom centre of a character and by a period in the SRX. For syllables beginning with a consonant, the period comes between the initial consonants and the vowel. For syllables that begin with a basic vowel, the dot comes before the syllable, and for syllables that begin with any other kind of vowel like u or y vowels, the dot comes after the first letter of the SRX, like in the word we. Note that this is different to how it was represented in the official videos and older copies of the guide, where the dot came before any vowel. It was changed after release. Don't be confused if you occasionally see the old format written somewhere. We've already met falling pitch in the word Xi'an. It is noted by a hook at the top right and by an apostrophe in the SRX. The apostrophe of one of these internal drops could end up either after the consonant before a simple vowel, after the consonant before a complex vowel, or inside a complex vowel. It's most often found just before the last letter of a complex vowel. There isn't anything in the Xi'an text that will tell you exactly where to put it. It's just telling you where the drop should fall, and you kind of have to know each example in order to get it correct. When these syllables with internal drops appear in words like woa and xi'an in uo'aXy'an, these internal drops are usually preserved where they are. Drops are also used when words are constructed from syllables of flat pitches, like in Xi'an, where Xie is naturally in high pitch, or even in words from syllables of the same pitch, like lehung. This is a very common pattern in two-syllable words. A drop between syllables is denoted by an apostrophe between the syllables in the SRX. This fall is usually to a mid-low pitch, but if the following syllable is low, it is referred to as a fall to low pitch, for example in the who, what, where question words. As you might expect, this is shown by the apostrophe of the fall and the dot of the low pitch, and their positions use the same rules we just discussed for each. The remaining pitch constructions are all rises. This is denoted by a hook in the bottom left, and then an additional symbol in the top right to tell you what kind of rise it is. A single dash is a rise to mid-high or a normal rise. A double dash means a rise to true high, and a hook means a rise to then fall. Representation of rises in SRX is quite complicated, so I've made a flowchart to go through it and all of its exceptions. I'm going to be focusing on the main rules in this description, and a lot of the detail is going to be in that flowchart. Let's start with normal rises. The lower left hook of a normal rise is designated by a period before the syllable, but will be omitted if the preceding syllable is low pitch, as in the word Xi'an, meaning grandmother. If the syllable starts with consonants, the apostrophe will come between the initial consonants and the vowel. If it starts with a vowel cluster, then the apostrophe will come after the first letter of the vowel cluster, and if the syllable starts with a basic vowel, then the apostrophe will come directly after the period before the rest of the syllable. A fairly consistent exception to this rule is any syllable which starts with a consonant and uses the vowel clusters oa or ea. In these, the punctuation is one step further into the word than when you expect. A rise to fall essentially follows those same rules as a normal rise, but will have an additional apostrophe, usually at the very end of the syllable. You also find a few words where the fall comes in the syllable because it's inheriting an internal drop from the original one-syllable character, like Thlea. I've greyed out one of the apostrophes here because it doesn't map exactly to a particular symbol in the Xi'an text. Instead, it's created by implication between the two hooks either side of the syllable. Like the true high syllables we met earlier, a rise to high is denoted by quote marks after the syllable. It will usually be at the end of the word, and likewise the quote marks in SRX will come at the end of the syllable. There are currently no examples where you get a rise to high inside a word, only at the end. There is one word, âman, where a low comes before a rise to high, and two dots are used here, but that's a particularly unusual slang word from military dialect. There's also one instance of a rise to high coming after a normal rise, and here the dot of the rise to high is omitted. Now let's apply what we've learned to the names we translated in the last episode. As I said before, I like to try and use the Xi'an naming customs as much as possible, and in those, male names tend to be low or falling pitch, and female names tend to be neutral, high or rising pitch. The exception to this are names which have a semantic meaning, like you can be called Nal, which means pilot, and then the pitch will be dependent on the word and it won't be affected by gender. I'm going to make Luke low pitch because it's a little hard to do a falling pitch on such a short syllable. So we put this low pitch mark in the Xi'an character and a period after the L in the SRX. Michael I make falling pitch, partly because that's how I say it, and partly because two-syllable words very commonly have a fall between the two syllables in Xi'an. We could also decide that we want the pitch to be inside one of the syllables, but that would be a little bit more unusual. Now let's ignore what the YouTube statistics are telling me and look at female names. May I could leave neutral, make high pitch, or put a normal rise or rise to high. High pitch would be the most standard for a female one-syllable name, so I'm going to do that. Finally, Emily could be neutral, or have a rise on either syllable, but a rise on the second syllable is most normal, and I think that will work perfectly. You are not obliged to follow these gendered pitch rules for your name. It was confirmed that they are neither here nor there for a human name, and Sherry Heiberg, the member of the law team responsible for overseeing xenolinguistics, uses a falling pitch in her name, because that's how she pronounces it. I would take that as a ringing endorsement to decide for yourself. There is no native construction for a completely gender-neutral name. However, you might consider using a rise to fall if you want to avoid any gender connotation, as that doesn't appear in any native names currently. Let's summarise what we've learned in this episode. Pitch is denoted by adding symbols to a character, with the SRX mimicking the position and appearance of those marks with periods, apostrophes and quote marks. Native Xi'an names have low or falling pitch for men, and neutral, high or rising pitch for women. And finally, you are not obliged to follow Xi'an pitch rules for a human name if you don't want to. As usual, I have a worksheet to help you practice the material we covered in this episode. In the next episode, we're going to be looking at tools and tricks to adapt a wider range of names to Xi'an and put a bit of a stylistic spin on them. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please do subscribe for more, comment if you have any questions, and leave a like if you enjoyed it. Until the next episode, Jan Leikol, study well.